Welcome. Our topic is transportation. Transportation, the Industrial Revolution. First, the world had gone through two industrial revolutions. The first brought the world entirely new kinds of transports like the steam engine, the waterway, the road, and the railroad. And the second revolution brought the inventions of automobile and airplanes. There were lots of inventions in the early 18th and the 19th century, and inventors like Alexander Graham Bell, we saw him invent telephone. Isaac Newton was noted for inventing the telescope. Even Charles Babbage was noted for the invention of computer. Leonardo da Vinci is noted for the invention of aerodynamics, that is the aeroplanes. Then we had Charles Babbage, I've said it, he was known for the computer. Then we have the Wright brothers. The Wright brothers, they built and they flew the world first successful airplanes. We shall see it in the course of this lesson. Okay, so what was used to power engines during the Industrial Revolution, and what did the Industrial Revolution mean to the world? We are going to be seeing all these and giving answers to these questions in the course of this lesson. First of all, let's look at the meaning of transportation. What is transportation? Okay, transportation is the movement of people and goods from one place to another by land, water, or air. The image before you, there are various means of transportation. Okay, so you have the airplanes for air transportation, you have the ship for water transportation, you have the truck and the train for land transportation. Okay, next let's look at the images of this water, air, and land transportation. So there are three types of transportation. Now we have the land transportation, the water transportation, and the air transportation. Land transportation involves the movement of people and goods through the land. Okay, so roads by motor cars, motorcycle, bicycle, horses. Then railways by train, and trekking by foot. These are all the types of land transportation. Then water transportation is the movement of goods and people across the bodies of water, oceans, lakes, rivers, by tank ships, tank trucks, pipelines, canals, okay, tunnels, boats, canoes, and cruise ships. So through pipelines, you can move and transport crude oils and all those liquid minerals. Air transportation, the movement of people and cargo by aircraft and airplanes. Okay, it could be for pleasure, it could be for business or military purposes. So it include hot air balloons, helicopters, airplanes, and air gels. So let's look at the images of land, air, and water transportation. So you can see the truck, the car, the lorry, the motorcycles. They are all means of land transportation. Then you have the canoes, and then you have the ship, the yacht. They are all means of transportation on water. Then you have the airplanes and jets and helicopters. They are means of transportation on air. Now, the next thing is the Industrial Revolution. So we have said that the world went through two industrial revolutions. The first was brought the world entirely to new kinds of transports like the steam engine, waterways, and so on. Then the second brought the inventions of automobiles, that is cars and aeroplanes. So like I said, the world as we know it today was actually different from the world 400 years ago. The Industrial Revolution was actually a widespread replacement of manual labor with machines. Yes, so machines such as the spinning jenny and handlooms were invented to help the spinning of fabrics easier and faster. Another invention during the Industrial Revolution was the steam engine. So this steam engine was actually significant because it uses heat to produce steam, and this steam is used to power engines, making it work. So these engines were used for trains, ships, and then to pump some machines. Then the significant advancement of the steam engine is that it helps to produce the steam which powers the engine, making it to work. Then they now use it for trains, for ships, and for pumps. Okay. So the Industrial Revolution changed the way people live, because during the Industrial Revolution, manual labor was actually replaced with the use of machines, and many favorites were built. Okay. And this Industrial Revolution began in Britain in the transportation industry. Okay, it affected lives on farms and villages, and the Industrial Revolution was to increase products and services all around the world. Okay, so that was about the Industrial Revolution. Now let's look at the images of the early steam engine. The early steam engine that was actually invented, that helped, or that was used to power ships and trains. So look at it, you have seen the image. So this particular engine uses water. So when the water is heated, it produces steam, and the steam is used to power trains, ships, and other pumps. So that's the image of the steam engine. Okay, it's most countries still use it, like Indian, but it's phasing off. The replacement, it's replaced now with gasoline and diesel powered vehicles. Now, image of the early hand spinning wheels used for making fabrics. This was the very first one that was actually invented, and it doesn't make a spinning of fabric, that is materials, clothing, faster. It's a manual way. So let's look at the image of the handlooms. Handlooms were invented that help spinning of fabrics easier and faster. Some of our parents used to have this products. They used to have these machines in the early 18th and 19th century. Okay, because these were products that were manufactured uh, in Europe then, in the early 18th century. Now let's look at the development of transport industry. For many years, people use animals to transport themselves by land over long distances, but eventually the wheels uh, were invented. Okay, so people were now carrying and drawing their animals to get around. Okay, now you know the automobile, you know the cars have wheels. So it was the Industrial Revolution that brought about the invention of the wheels, the automobile. So the invention of the automobile, the first, was built by the French army officer Captain Nicolas Joseph Cognot. Okay, later on, the gasoline car was invented, okay, that burned fuel inside the cylinders of the engines. Okay, so it's called engines, that internal combustion engines, because they burn fuel inside the cylinders of the engine. So in 1880s, the a German engineer, inventor, and a manufacturer, okay, Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach. They were German inventors. They invented the first car, then later on Carl Benz produced his first gasoline car. These three engineers came together to form, they joined forces to start a company. Okay, they are now the makers of all the Mercedes Benz you know in the world. So later Henry Ford made the Ford car, but he actually produced cars cheaply for everyone to use. So the first gasoline car was produced by Carl Benz, while Henry Ford made car available to everyone. The invention of the wheels have actually helped to move people around in carriages or wheels drawn by animals. Okay, so that is the development of transportation industry. Now the early Henry Ford car. This is the image of the early Henry Ford car. This is the car that Henry Ford produced that people could afford cheaply. So those it could carry four persons, could carry four passengers. So that's the image. Okay, some of you have seen these vehicles in early 18th century movies. If you watch them, these are the kind of vehicles you will see there. So water transportation. Those days, human beings have been traveling for thousands of years, from the use of simple rafts and canoes made from logs and planks to huge wooden ships to the complex cruise ships of today. So, from rafts to canoes to big ships to cruise ships to sail ships. Okay, so they used rafts. A raft is just a simple form of water transportation. It is the simplest form of water transportation. Okay, raft is just a floating structure made by tying together logs of other materials that float. It could be a bamboo tree tied together and propelled by poles and paddles. We will see the images of paddle in the next slide. Now, later on, the Greeks built war vessels. Okay, they use oars and sail. An oar is just paddles attached to a long pole and fastened to the sides of the boat, which gave it more speed. And the sail is a piece of material extended on the mast of a ship, giving it speed too. So the oars and the sail gives a ship speed when it's moving on the waters. So the use of the sailing ship declined with the invention of steam engines, and later it was replaced by gasoline and diesel. Okay, so Nigerian seaports include, first we have the Apapa Port, the Tinkan Island Port, Warri Port, Cocoa Port, Opobo Port, Port Harcourt, Calabar Port. These are the ports in Nigeria. So when ships arrive at the seaports, they are either seen offloading or picking cargoes. Okay, so that's the transportation industry. Let's look at the image of the rafts. The first image from the left is the rafts. You saw bamboo trees tied together. People will be on top. That's the means of transportation that the early men used in the even before the 18th century. Now the next is the canoe. Below it is the canoe. You saw they are using the oar to paddle it. That's what we normally call paddles. Okay, they are known as oars. Okay, then you see the big ship. This ship was invented by man, and it's helping to carry cargoes from one continent to the other. Okay, let's look at this clip. Did you see this ship moving on a sea? Most often these ships move from one continent to the other, bringing goods like fish, bringing minerals, okay, like oil. Nigeria uses such big ships to export its crude oil to other continents, to other countries of the world. Most times these big ships, they spend like 6 months on the oceans, sometimes 1 year before they arrive at their destination. Sometimes when these ships arrive to Nigeria, if they are bringing in goods from other countries, some of them, they offload their goods at the Tinkan airport, Tinkan port in Apapa, Lagos. Okay, so that is what the ship. So you see how big and large it is. Vehicles could be loaded into these ships and imported to a country or exported. Okay, a lot of huge and big cargoes, containers of rice, containers of various commodities could be loaded on these big ships, and they will travel on the water. Okay, so when you want to transport heavy products, you can use the water transportation because it's the cheapest means of transportation. Okay, so that is what that for the water transportation. Now let's look at rail transportation. Rail transportation is the movement of passengers and goods along the railways or railroads. A train is a series of railroad vehicles linked together. So the vehicles are drawn by a locomotive. And what's a locomotive? A locomotive is a specially designed engine built for use on railways. So on the railways, you see all those coaches that are dragged by the first patch of the vehicle. So those are known as locomotive. So it's that first vehicle that is carrying it that we call the engine. Okay. So, but George Stephenson used the steam engine to power locomotives and to pull wagons along railroad tracks. Okay, now today railway industry has evolved from using steam engines to diesel and even electricity. There are very beautiful trains that are being invented, so we're no longer using the steam engine, but some countries like India, they are still making use of steam engine to power their railway, while other countries have gone beyond the steam engine to use gasoline, electricity to move their trains on the railway. Now, the National Railway Corporation oversees the management of Nigeria's railway system. Diesel engine is an important contribution to the development of railway transportation because it's safe and it's more better. Now, images of early trains drawn by locomotives and a modern train. The image by the left That's the first image by the left is a train drawn by a steam engine. Okay, that's, you see the pollution, you saw all the smoke coming out. Now the second one is the modern train. You see how neat it is. That's what invention have brought to man, and that is what the industrial revolution have brought. So from the locomotive steam engine to the fine modern powered diesel gasoline trains that go on our railroad. Okay, now let's look at air transportation. Air transportation. Now, for thousands of years, human beings have been fascinated by the flight of birds. Yes, people have watched birds. Some legends, we have seen them attempting to fly like birds. So, the first type of aircraft made was a kite in the early 5th century. Okay, we are in the 20th century now, so you should know what we are talking about when we say 5th century. You know the gap, the hundreds of years that have passed. Now, by the 16th century, Leonardo da Vinci, I said he was he invented, or he covered the areas of aerodynamics. He's known for aerodynamics. Okay, that is when you talk about airplane. So in the 16th century, Leonardo da Vinci invented a propeller and a parachute. Some of you have seen parachutes in movies. Okay, it looks like a balloon that people go in and then they fly down. So after da Vinci, many people studied aerodynamics. Aerodynamics is the study of how solid bodies move through the air. So planes could not be powered by the steam engines. Trains and other things were powered, ships were powered by the steam engine, but aeroplanes could not be powered by steam engine. And we said that steam engine, that they are, when they produce heat, that is the heat that is used to drive trains and ships, but planes could not be powered by the steam engine. Now, in 1903, near Kitty Hawk in North Carolina, United States, there were two brothers there, Wilbur and Orville Wrights. The Wright brothers, that's what they are often called. They made the world first successful flight. So the Wright brothers, they made the first world successful flight, Wilbur and Orville. Okay. So the First World War hastened the development of the aviation industry because the government involved, they poured in a lot of money producing aircraft, okay, designed to attack, pursue, bomb, and perform other military operations. So a plane's engine are designed to move it forward at high speed. Most often you could be asked what makes the plane suspended in the air. Carry out a research and check on what makes planes to suspend in the air. So you say a plane's engines are designed to move it forward at a very high speed. That makes air flow rapidly over the wings, which throw the air down towards the ground. I hope you're understanding it. Now, generating an upward force called lift that overcomes the plane's weight and holds it in a sky. Now, the wings force air downward and that pushes the plane upwards. Okay. Now, let's look at the images of aircraft of the early and the modern planes. So now the first image by the left is that of the Wright brothers. That's the first airplanes that the Wright brothers produced. You can see how it was looking. So those were the first planes. I think they flew for just 59 seconds and then they came down. Then the early planes, you see the difference between the modern train planes and the early aircraft that was produced by the Wright brothers. So after the Wright brothers, other inventors went on designing and building different kinds of aircraft. So that is that. Now let's look at space travel. Space travel. Most of you have heard about the satellite. Okay, for many years human beings have gazed at the stars and wondered about life in space. Sometimes you take your face up into the sky and you'll be wondering, now this shiny little thing that is up there, what's it doing? Now, the space age began with the launch of the first satellite into space. A satellite is an artificial body placed in the orbit around the Earth. It could be placed in the moon or other planets. We have 9 planets, okay, to collect information or for communication. So when satellites are being launched into the space, they are there to pick information. And it's because satellites was launched in Nigeria. You have Sat 1, Sat 2. So these things, they involve a lot of money, and when they are launched into the space, they help, like the internet, that we are able to access different information from different parts of the world. It was the aid of this space satellite travel that brought about all those development. Without launching of satellites into space, you cannot get information into your phones, and so that's the essence of that industrial revolution. So we have said that the space age began with the launch of the first satellite into space, and we said that a satellite is an artificial body placed in the orbit around the Earth, could be placed around the moon. The first man to travel into space is astronaut Yuri Gagarin. Okay, that's his name. Astronaut Yuri Gagarin was the first man to travel into space. An astronaut is a person who is trained to travel in a spacecraft. So we have aircraft and we have spacecrafts going into the space. So US astronaut Neil Armstrong was the first man to land on the moon. Neil Armstrong was the first man to land on the moon. Okay, so the first satellite in space is Sputnik 1. Okay, Nigeria launched its own satellite into space. We have Sat 1, Sat 2. So, but the first satellite that was launched into space is Sputnik 1. He stayed there for some few days or so, and at a time the battery died off. It was not able to pick information. Then later it fell back into the earth. That was the Sputnik 1. So challenges engineers and scientists face in trying to put a satellite in space includes they had to develop rockets that were powerful enough to boost a satellite into the earth's atmosphere into space. Now satellites has to be built from light and durable materials strong enough to withstand the force of being launched into the atmosphere. Now let's see the images of these satellites. The first last satellite, that is the Sputnik 1 that was launched into the atmosphere, is the image, the first image from the left. Okay, the top first image from the left was the Sputnik 1. You saw how it's looking. Then you have all these modern satellites. That's the image from the right, the first image from the right. Yes, that's the modern satellite. Now some robots have been sent into the space to go and pick information. So most times scientists, they build robots, they send them into space to pick information. So these are the images of space satellites that help to bring down information to man. They are controlled and manned by the computers. Okay, that's these are the images. Now thank you for watching. I know you've seen this bicycle. A bicycle is one of the best environmental friendly means of transportation. A lot of countries like India, China, in fact most of the Asian continents, and even in Africa here, we use bicycle as a means of transportation. Can you ride a bicycle? Okay, that's a talk for another day. But like I said, bicycle is a very environmental friendly means of transportation. It doesn't need any fuel to power it. Okay, you just roll the pedals and you are on the move. Thank you for actually watching this video. Please use your question box in your portal to ask any question and try and answer, do your assignments on page exercises 33 to 38. Okay, thank you and be good.